Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.
Over the last 20 years, with all your support, we've been able to not only launch the original MyPillow, but also the MyPillow mattress topper, Giza Dream bed sheets, My Slippers, and the MyPillow bath towels. But there's so much more. In fact, we have over 200 products, and I'm so confident that you'll love each and every one of them that when you go to MyPillow.com now, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20 just for checking out the website. No purchase necessary. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, body pillows, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And remember, just for checking out MyPillow.com, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20. No purchase necessary. This is a limited time promotion, so go to MyPillow.com now.
From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Washington Watch. I'm Jody Heiss, a Senior Vice President here at the Family Research Council. An honor to be filling in for Tony and extremely pleased and grateful to have you joining us as well. We're taking a break from the news cycle today to bring you this special back-to-school edition of Washington Watch. There are few issues as important as the education of our children. And recently, few issues have generated more passion than education policy. So today on the program, I'll discuss the state of parental rights in education with the chairwoman of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, as well as FRC's Meg Kilgannon. Then, as parents see the need to engage with their local schools, an increasing number are standing up. They're going to school board meetings, and many of them are even running for a seat on local school boards. I'll talk about this with Amy Sneed from Moms for Liberty. Also, could you use maybe a back-to-school toolkit to be better equipped for the new school year? Well, an organization called Courage is a Habit offers this, as well as many other resources for parents and students. I'll be talking with the founder of Courage is a Habit, Alvin Louie, as the program goes on. And then, as Christians, educating our children and grandchildren is about much more than simply education. It's about creating disciples. I'll close the program today speaking with a ministry that provides biblical instruction to public school students. And then we'll talk about how churches and communities can create their own schools and offer a balanced instruction from a Christian perspective to students. So we've got a packed show. The website, as always, tonyperkins.com, a lot of tremendous resources there for you. So be sure to visit that website, tonyperkins.com. All right, let's jump into the issues that we are going to cover today. Parental rights in education. This continues to create waves in school districts all throughout the country. That's one reason why House Republicans passed the Parents' Bill of Rights earlier this year. Well, why is this such an important piece of legislation? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. She serves as the chairwoman of the House Committee on Education and Workforce. She's also a member of the House Oversight and Reform Committee. In fact, she and I sat beside each other on that committee for several years. She represents the 5th Congressional District of North Carolina. Dr. Foxx, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Hey, thanks, Jody. It's great to see you. I miss having you sitting next to me.
Well, likewise, I really do. We had a lot of great times, and good to be in the battle side by side, literally, with you. A lot of people may not know this, Virginia, but you got your start in politics when you ran for a seat on your local school board. Real quickly, tell us about that.
Well, I was at I was observing school board meetings for the League of Women Voters to make sure that people in the community knew what was going on, because there was often no press. And so one night I was at a school board meeting, and the school board members were very incompetent that night. And somebody said, "Why don't you run for the school board?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not qualified." You know, women tend to think that they don't have the qualifications, Jody. So he said, "You mean you're not as qualified as those turkeys are?" So I said, "Well, I've got a master's degree in education. I'm teaching at Appalachian State University. I have a child in school." Went home, told my husband, "Ron thinks I should run for the school board." He said, "I think that's a good idea." Now, let me tell you, I lost my first election by about 200 votes. But I didn't let that stop me. I ran again, and the next time I was the top vote getter. So sometimes you have to run more than once to win. But I served 3 4-year terms on the school board, and I think I was a very effective member. I worked hard at it. I studied the issues. Sometimes it was 4-1 votes, but later on, those guys would often come around to join me. So it was an excellent experience and really helped prepare me to be chairwoman. I was working at the university at the time, so I have university experience as a teacher and as an administrator, and then I became the president of a community college. So, Jody, I have experience at all 3 levels of education, and those have really made me experienced and qualified to serve in the position the Lord's put me in right now.
Absolutely, and you do a great job at it, Virginia, I can tell you that. All right, let's jump to the Parents' Bill of Rights. You were a champion of that. Why is that such an important piece of legislation?
Well, first of all, let me say the only good thing that came out of COVID, Jody, in my opinion, is how it exposed education at all levels for how bad it is in this country. And so Republicans wanted to make sure that the public understands we are the champions of education freedom. We should have education freedom for every child, every parent in this country. So we put forth the Parents' Bill of Rights, and I might glance at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything, because we think there are 5 essential elements that parents need. Number one, to know what their children are being taught. I don't see how anybody could argue with that. They need to be heard by educators and policymakers. So if you want to talk to the teachers and the principals and the school board members, you should be able to do that. They need to see the school budget and how the money's being spent. They need to know where the money's coming from, what influence it might be having on the school programs, and where the money's going. They need to be able to protect their child's privacy. Schools are selling information on students to outside sources, and those outside sources are then contacting students directly in many cases. We don't think that's right. Their privacy should be protected. Our Constitution requires that. And then we want parents to be able to help keep their children safe by making sure that they have information on anything that is happening that could put their child in danger, such as the case up in Virginia where the boy masquerading as a girl sexually assaulted a child in one school, was transferred to another school because nobody knew about it. The administrators, the bureaucrats kept it secret. So we want that information out there to parents. They have a right to know that.
Absolutely. Well, Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, thank you for the incredible work that you're doing and that you have done. We are grateful for you coming on this special edition of Washington Watch, sharing your expertise with us as well. God bless you. Keep the torch ablaze there in Congress. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jody and Tony and everyone there for what you're doing to make sure people are informed about what Republicans and conservatives are doing in the Congress and what the liberals are doing in the Congress or attempting to do. It's very important that people understand the 2 sides of the issues that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. We'll keep it up. Thank you. All right, continuing the conversation on parental rights in education, joining me now with an overview of what we've been seeing across the country and where we're headed when it comes to parental rights in education is Meg Kilgannon. She's a senior fellow for education studies here at the Family Research Council. and she, of course, served in the U.S. Department of Education during the Trump administration. Meg, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, Jody. It's great to see you.
All right, we've seen really a lot of momentum in the area of parental rights in education. Even in California, some school districts there mandating that parents be told if their child identifies as a different gender at school. But if you can, kind of give us the big picture across the country of where we stand, both the good and the bad.
Sure. Well, we're really at a crossroads, and some of these examples that you talked about reflect a real difference of opinion on what should the role of parents be in school. There are people on the left who believe that they are the education experts and that once your kid is at the school, your child walks through the door, they're really in charge. And then we have people on the right who would like to have a little more of a say about what's happening in the schools. We know that our children are gifts from God given to us to make sure that we train them up to know, love, and serve Him. And so we want to make sure that that's possible, and that is not being undermined in the situation that they're in school. And so this is playing out in particular on the issue of gender identity and whether or not a school system is going to even tell a parent that their child has made a declaration at school that they would like to be called another name, or they would like to be treated as another gender, or that they feel they've been born in the wrong body. In states like California and recently in New Jersey, the governors there, the attorney generals there have taken action to say that no, you can't do it. And so we really encourage school boards like the ones in California and the ones in New Jersey who at the school board level passed resolutions saying, no, in our school system, we will tell parents what's happening with their children. If your child makes a declaration about this, we're going to tell you.
Yeah, and I mean, parents need to know about that. As we look at all of this, Meg, the transgender issue obviously is taking all the oxygen out of the room. It seems like that is but there's a lot of other issues that parents have been pushing back on as well. What are some of those?
Sure. There's a lot of concern about school discipline policies and whether or not the very progressive kind of policies that you see like at district attorneys level and Commonwealth's attorney levels who are not prosecuting crime, some of those sensibilities are flowing into the school system, and children who are not behaving in school are not necessarily facing consequences for their actions. And parents aren't being notified of those situations either. It's not happening in every school, but it's happening in a lot of schools. And this is something that parents really need to be engaged on. Does your school district have school resource officers, for example? This is a big question. Some schools are pulling their school resource officers out, and so this is a problem. Does your school allow warrants to be served on students who may be charged with a crime, or a teacher who might be charged with a crime? I mean, these are tough issues, and they're things that we all really need to be concerned about and be aware that school isn't just about education. There are so many things that play out in the school system. There are budgetary issues, transportation issues, infrastructure issues. What are the buildings used for? Where are we going to build the new school? Are we going to build the new school? These are really important issues that are faced by every community. The value of your home is tied to these issues. The location of new business in your community, businesses want to know they have an educated workforce for employees. So there are so many consequences of these educational issues, and we must engage.
We've got about 30 seconds. I know there's a lot of resources we have at FRC and FRC Action. Tell us where people can go to get more information and access some resources.
You can go to frc.org/education, and you can go to frc.org/schools to visit our school board boot camp.
That is excellent. Meg Kilgannon, always great to have you on the program. You are an encyclopedia of information, and you do it with a great spirit. Thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thank you.
All right, Meg Kilgannon, thank you so much. Friends, stay tuned. There's much more ahead on this special edition, back to school edition of Washington Watch. We'll be back after the break.
In recent years, Christians have seen an accelerated assault on not just our core beliefs, but their very foundation. Now is the time to build on that foundation, strengthen our faith, and learn how to translate our beliefs into actions that engage the culture around us. That's the purpose behind this year's Pray Vote Stand Summit, Believe and Engage. Pray Vote Stand Summit is a national gathering of spiritually active, governance-engaged conservatives, or SageCons. We'll hear from Christian leaders, worldview experts, government officials, and more. We'll discuss important issues like the sanctity of life, religious freedom, protecting students, strengthening families, praying for our nation, and how you can impact America's future from a biblical worldview. Together, we can believe and engage. Join us September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. for this pivotal event. Register now at prayvotestand.org.
Everything we do begins as an idea. Before there can be acts of courage, there must be the belief that some things are worth sacrificing for. Before there can be marriage, there is the idea that man should not be alone. Before there was freedom, there was the idea that individuals are created equal. It's true that all ideas have consequences, but we're less aware that all consequences are the fruit of ideas. Before there was murder, there was hate. Before there was a Holocaust, there was the belief by some people that other people are undesirable. Our beliefs determine our behavior, and our beliefs about life's biggest questions determine our worldview. Where did I come from? Who decides what is right and wrong? What happens when I die? Our answers to these questions explain why people see the world so differently. Debates about abortion are really disagreements about where life gets its value. Debates over sexuality and gender and marriage are really disagreements about whether the rules are made by us or for us. What we think of as political debates are often much more than that. They're disagreements about the purpose of our lives and the source of truth. As Christians, our goal must be to think biblically about everything. Our goal is to help you see beyond red and blue, left and right, to see the battle of ideas at the root of it all. Our goal is to equip Christians with a biblical worldview and help them advance and defend the faith in their families, communities, and the public square. Cultural renewal doesn't begin with campaigns and elections. It begins with individuals turning from lies to truth. But that won't happen if people can't recognize a lie and don't believe truth exists. We want to help you see the spiritual war behind the political war, the truth claims behind the press release, and the forest from the trees.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to this special back-to-school edition of Washington Watch. I'm your host, Jody Heiss. An honor to have you on board with us. Well, it's the duty of every parent to be engaged in their children's education. We need to know what our kids are being taught. We also need to know who's teaching them. We need to be engaged with what's going on, and there's a growing trend of conservative parents recognizing that one of the best ways to do this includes going to school board meetings and maybe even running for a seat on the local school board. Here to highlight ways for you, yes, here to highlight ways for you to be engaged with your local school board is Amy Sneed. She's the chapter chair of Moms for Liberty in Bedford County, Virginia. Amy, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you this afternoon.
Well, can you share with us how you were led to become more engaged with your local school system, how it all started for you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it goes back to my own childhood. My mom was very involved in our school. She was involved in all of our PTA events. Some of my earliest memories are attending PTA meetings with my mom. And so as my husband and I got married and started our own family, I knew that was something that was really important to me. We have 4 boys who now have been, so we've been involved in the public education system for almost 12 years. Our oldest son is in 11th grade. And so that's just always been something that's been important to me, serving in our kids' schools, as a room mom, planning parties and teacher appreciation weeks and all the kinds of things that you do to be involved with your children's school. Now, I will say that when COVID hit, sort of everything ramped up a notch. So we started seeing things happening in our children's school that made us question whether or not the people in positions to make decisions over them were actually making the best decisions for our students, or were making decisions that went against what we would have decided as parents. And so we really decided to up our engagement at that point.
Well, and that's something I think a lot of parents all across the country are beginning to realize, that they need to step it up as well. And it's fascinating to me how Moms for Liberty has become a growing movement across the country. What would you describe as the driving force behind Moms for Liberty, and how is it being received overall, do you think?
Well, I've heard it said before, the most dangerous place to be is between a mother and her child. And I think that's what we saw, and that's what really spurred people's involvement to get engaged with Moms for Liberty. So, I think what we see, boots on the ground, our chapter has been in place. We actually just celebrated our 2-year anniversary this month. And so we were fairly early on in this as an organization. It was established 2.5 years ago in Florida. And so what we've seen is the more parents that hear about this movement, the more they're saying, I agree with you. I didn't know there were others who felt this way. I've been wanting a way to get involved and get engaged. And I think Moms for Liberty provides that avenue for parents, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, community members. It's not limited to moms, but Moms for Liberty provides that structure and organization for parents who want to get more involved.
Well, and you really have become an organization in so many ways that's on the tip of the spear. How have you, now you're in Virginia, how have you been able to partner with new school board members in the effort to keep the schools there in Bedford County, Virginia, focused on learning and not on political agendas?
Yeah, we've been able to build really great relationships with our school board members. Some of our current school board members are actually dads who were standing outside of school board meetings when we were not being permitted in the building, or when speaking time was being limited, and we were basically creating our own meetings outside of these meetings. And there were dads who were standing up along with us, and they decided themselves to run for school board and now sit on the other side of those school board tables at the meetings. And so we've been able to build great relationships, and that's a paramount of our organization. One of our values is that we are joyful warriors. We are not there to scream and tear everything down. We are there to stand for truth and build relationships and empower others. And so it really has been, several years now of building relationships with the former school board members and the ones that are currently serving and will continue to serve, for a few more years.
So for those who are listening or watching right now all across the country, I'm thinking in particular of the parent who says, I'm far too busy to be engaged in the nitty-gritty of my child's education. What would you say to that parent who may be watching or listening right now?
Well, I would say if they are thinking that they're far too busy to prioritize their children's education, there are some things that could probably be readjusted in your schedule. We're all probably guilty of a little too much scrolling and spending time on our phones or getting distracted by other things. And I would argue that there are few things in life more important than being involved in your child's education. That is the foundation upon which their lives will build. It is a huge part of the trajectory of their future and what they will go on to do after they have left their youth education. And so I would say, first of all, if you're listening, you probably don't fall in that category of saying that you're too busy because you're engaged with this. But I would say there are lots of ways to get involved that meet anyone's availability as far as your time frame. And I would say some really practical ways to do that are getting to know who your school board representative is. myself, along with members of our organization, have spent hundreds of hours talking to members of our community. And most times people do not even know who their elected school board representative is. And so build a relationship with that person prior to when there has been an issue that arises that you think, I don't know what to do. I need to contact my school board representative. Know who that person is. Tune into a school board meeting. One of the blessings of COVID is that all of the school board meetings are now live streamed. So you can have it playing, in the kitchen while you're packing lunches or prepping dinner for the week, and hear what the conversations are. You can hear how your representatives are voting, and then it just strengthens the toolbox that you have of knowledge as to what's actually happening in your local school system.
Amy, we're going to have to wrap it up right there real quickly. Where can folks go to find more information?
I would encourage you to visit momsforliberty.org. You can find if there's a local chapter near you, or if this has made your heart beat a little bit faster, you can start a chapter of your own.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy. Coming up next here on Washington Watch, Alvin Louie of Courage is a Habit will join me to highlight some of his back-to-school toolkits.
All of us are born with the desire to find truth and meaning. Where did I come from? What happens when I die? While our answers to these questions may divide us, we are united in our need for the freedom to answer life's biggest questions and make life's biggest decisions for ourselves. That's why religious freedom matters for everyone. Religious freedom matters because the powerful have long wanted to control those who are less powerful. Religious freedom matters because the freedom of those who are different is often threatened by those who believe different is dangerous. Leah Sheribu, a Christian teenager in Nigeria, remains a captive of Boko Haram for her refusal to renounce her Christian faith. Chinese pastor Wang Yi is serving a 9-year sentence for speaking publicly against the Chinese government. In Pakistan, Asif Pervez is on death row for allegedly sending a blasphemous text message. All of this because people in power decided different is dangerous. At the Center for Religious Liberty at Family Research Council, we promote religious freedom for everyone because the only alternative is religious freedom for no one. We encourage Americans and the American government to engage and advocate for the persecuted, and they do. We work every day to bring good news to the afflicted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. We do it because that's what Jesus does. We work to give freedom to others because we ourselves have been set free.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to this special back-to-school edition of Washington Watch. I'm Jody Heiss, the Senior Vice President here at the Family Research Council, and thank you so much for joining us. Well, on today's program, we've already discussed parental rights in education as a general rule, and also how you can be engaged with your local school board. Well, now we'll discuss a great back-to-school toolkit that every Christian parent should have as they move throughout this school year. And here to unpack it literally for us is Alvin Louie. He's the president of Courage is a Habit, which is the organization that put this back-to-school resource together. Alvin, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you.
No, it's an honor to be here. It's always a pleasure to be on this wonderful show. It's good to see you, Jody.
Well, it's great to see you as well. Listen, let's just start with this toolkit. I think this is a fantastic idea. What inspired you to put it together, and what kind of stuff is in it?
Well, we know that as school is starting, a lot of parents are either starting to see and hear that school isn't what they thought it was when they were going to school. Some parents have already been fighting a lot of the political and sexual indoctrination that's happening in all 50 states. It's not a red or blue state thing. And then some parents have really been fighting over the last 2 or 3 years. So instead of doing a checklist, which is just more things for parents to add on their to-do list, we wanted to make a toolkit for everybody. So this toolkit has something if you're a parent that's just coming in and hearing that there's something not right with the schools, there's something for you. We've got two very easy to follow volumes that we link, and that's all you got to do. There's no acronyms, there's no prerequisites to understand. If you just want to find out what's in your child's school and find out for yourself, we provide 2 volumes for you that you can pick and choose and kind of create an a la carte for yourself. We walk you through how to use those 2 volumes. Makes it very easy for the average parent. Then if you've been fighting, if you've been looking at things and understanding that there's some real serious political and sexual indoctrination, but you've been fighting one way, we give you 3 tactics that are fresh, gives you a new perspective, and hopefully inspires you to come up with things on your own as well. So it's not the usual tactics that we saw seeing parents trying to kind of hit a butt up against the wall. Then if you're a parent who is maybe leading a parent group, or you already spoke in front of school boards a lot, or you're dealing with school counselors and teachers and superintendents, and you've been really struggling with that over the last couple of years, we have something for you that's, because you're a little more experienced, we give you some tactics that really kind of puts you in puts the offense back in your hands instead of you feeling that you're playing defense all the time. And that we give you something to ask, because in this space here, we're a lot of stop this, stop that, which is true because there's a lot of things that are wholly inappropriate for children. But we also want to teach parents to ask for things. And if the school can't give it, then you start seeing some of that hypocrisy, and then you can kind of expose some of that. So that's for parents who have a little more experience. And then after that, we have a whole page for tools for all parents. Doesn't matter what your experience level. And so we provide 4 or 5 of those tools. And then at the very end, of course, we talk about to give you some tool for the transgender fight. Obviously, the transgender social contagion is very much in the schools through social emotional learning, through the culture. And so we give you 3 tools that really kind of give you real facts so that you feel confident in standing up for your kids against this social contagion. And then, of course, at the very last page, we give you an opt-out form that you can use.
That's fantastic. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but last time that you were on the show with us, we addressed some of the issues that are plaguing so many of our public schools today. And
Sure.
Look, no doubt there are many great teachers out there, but there are some school officials out there that are just bad apples that parents need to be keeping an eye out for. And probably they're in the school district right there where these parents are, all across the country, right?
Absolutely. There's so many great teachers and school counselors, but the systems that are training them have all been co-opted. So those good ones become silenced, they get bullied, just like parents feel that way. So one of the greatest dangers for children today, probably the main one for us, what we've seen is the school counselors. They're from the American School Counselor Associations. These school counselors, they bring in the indoctrination through the guise of mental health, social emotional learning, these very soft skills that all of us want our children to learn, but they don't do it through the same lens as you do. So what we want to tell parents is to use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. And we will provide a tool that kind of helps parents understand how school counselors weaponize your kindness to get to your children. And that's, I believe, linked on your show notes as well.
All right. Well, yeah, we've only got maybe a minute or so left. So expound on that. Real quickly, some of the other resources that you offer and how parents can get their hands on them.
Absolutely. Another tool that we released that we're super proud of is called Beyond the Workplace. You can find it at courageisahabit.org under tools. Also, courageisahabit.org also allows you to access our catalog of tools that are made for the average parent. We don't make these tools for parents who are politicians or lifelong activists, nothing like that. We provide it for you, the parents that don't have 10, 15 hours. Maybe you don't even have 4 hours a week. So courageisahabit.org, Beyond the Workplace, teaches you how to leverage your workplace HR training to protect your children. Because a lot of what your children are being faced with, if it happened to you at your workplace, you would go right to HR and it would stop. So why is it that we can protect adults, but we can't protect children? So courageisahabit.org, that's the place to go. And you can follow us at our socials at Courage Habit, and we're a nonprofit, so any support people give us would be appreciated.
Thank you, Alvin Louie, president of Courage is a Habit. We appreciate you joining us on Washington Watch. All right, friends, don't go anywhere. There's much more when we come back as we continue this special back to school edition of Washington Watch. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
It begins here, and here, and here. Every day. Before you stand, you need solid ground. Standing in a culture that wants you to surrender the truth won't work unless you have a firm foundation. At Family Research Council, we have that firm foundation, and you can find us standing. We stand for the value of all human life. We stand for the right of families to flourish. And every day we stand for your freedom to believe and to live out those beliefs both at home and abroad. We work with government officials, educating them on the issues from a biblical worldview. And when necessary, we hold them accountable. We equip Christians across America to be informed and to take action in their communities. With our daily radio program, television appearances, and vast online presence, we reach people where they are. We envision an America where all human life is valued, families flourish, and religious liberty thrives. And that won't be realized if we're not standing. Stand for faith. Stand for family. Stand for freedom. Stand with us at FRC.
I'm often asked by people, Tony, how do you stay encouraged? How do you deal with all of the stuff in Washington, D.C., the negative policies that are attacking our faith, our family, and our freedoms? Well, you want me to let you in on the secret? It's called the Word of God. And that is why the Family Research Council embarked on Stand on the Word, a 2-year journey through the Bible. It's a chronological Bible reading plan with just 10 to 15 minutes a day. In 2 years, you will have covered the entire Bible. And to go along with this, Monday through Friday, I do a morning devotional that goes along with the reading of the day. It's all designed to encourage you on this journey because the Word of God, as the psalmist said, in my affliction, here's my comfort. Your Word gives me life. That is our source of strength. To find out more, go to tonyperkins.com or frc.org/Bible. And I invite you to join me every morning for our Stand on the Word Bible devotion.
This fall, believers from across America will gather in our nation's capital. We'll hear from government leaders, policy experts, and leading Christian voices, learning how we can engage in government at every level, from local school boards to state legislatures to Congress and even the White House, to win back the soul of our nation. Join with us for the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, Believe and Engage, September 15th through 17th. Register now at PrayVoteStand. FRC celebrating 40 years with its first president, Jerry Regier.
Family Research Council is extremely important, and I think there's a lot of people, both in the Christian world as well as on Capitol Hill, that really depend on the research and the input that FRC gives them. And the impact you've had on both Congress and Senate, as well as America at large, is really quite amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jerry Regier, FRC's first president. Friends, listen, the countdown is here, just a few more days before our big Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. It's on September 15th through 17th here in Washington, D.C., celebrating 40 years of standing for faith, family, and freedom. And we would love to see you there, to come join us on this special occasion celebrating 40 years, but also preparing for what's ahead. Registration is now open. You can get more details and you can register by going to PrayVoteStand.org. And we hope, again, to see you there for that Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. All right, as Christian parents with children in public schools seek options for their children to receive some biblical instruction, Many of them are taking advantage of release time programs that allow public school students to stay on campus during school hours to participate in religious instructions. Yes, you got that right. This religious instruction on the campuses of public schools. There was an Ohio-based ministry that launched in 2019 that specializes in biblical instruction to public school students, and the ministry is booming. It's expanded now to over 300 schools across some 11 states. Some 30,000 students are involved this year. And joining me now to talk about it is Joel Penton. He's the founder and CEO of LifeWise Academy. Joel, thank you for joining us on Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, let's just begin by telling us a little bit about the ministry, LifeWise Academy. What is it and what do you offer?
Yeah, well, we provide, just as you said, Bible education for public school students during school hours. Most people think that sounds crazy in 2023, but little do most people realize, I didn't realize it until recently, that in 1952, the Supreme Court ruled that public school students can be released from public school during school hours to receive religious instruction as long as the program is off school property, privately funded, and students have parental permission. I believe it's the single greatest missed opportunity of the American church to reach the next generation with the Word of God. As you mentioned, we launched the program in 2019. We take students off-site to a nearby facility during the school day. We teach them a Bible lesson. We bring them back. And after launching with 2 pilot programs just a few years ago, we're now serving over 300 schools. And as of a couple days ago, it's now not just across 11 states, it's across 12.
Amazing. Yeah, we have a similar ministry here in my home state of Georgia that is seeing similar results as yours. I mean, your ministry is exploding. I mean, y'all have gone from being in some 130 plus public schools to now well over 300. And look, students as well as parents are responding. This boom is scratching an itch is really what it tells us. What can you tell us about some of the feedback that you're receiving both from parents and students?
Oh, well, how much time do we have? We get stories every single day about the impact in the lives. I was just speaking in a church on Sunday morning, this past Sunday, and a woman came up to me between the 2 services and said, "Hey, I want to thank you for LifeWise. My kids and I are in this church because of LifeWise. We got connected because my daughter started going to these LifeWise Academy Bible classes, and just a couple weeks ago, we got baptized." And that's we hear the stories time and time again, and we hear from parents and from students. And perhaps the way parents are giving us the loudest feedback is just them enrolling their students. We are seeing incredibly high participation rates. Oftentimes, more than half of the entire school will enroll in our optional Bible class. We have one community in Northwest Ohio. There's 1,000 students in the elementary school. Over 900 of them, over 90% are enrolled in LifeWise, hearing the Bible or learning the Bible each and every week. And so what we're seeing is that there is a hunger. Most parents want religious instruction. They want Bible education as part of their kids' public school day. However, most just simply can't do the homeschool or the private school thing. And so in large quantities, they're taking advantage of programs like this.
Yeah, great point. And I want to stress again, this is taking place in public schools, and it does serve a need for parents that can't, for whatever reason, get their kids enrolled in a private school or something along those lines. So, Joel, here's the big question. There, no doubt, are people listening and watching right now that are saying, I would give anything to have something like this in my local school. How can people establish a program like this in their local communities?
Well, I so appreciate this question. And if you are listening, if you are watching, if you think it sounds like a good idea for public school students in your area to learn the Bible as part of their public school day, then you can get involved. Even if you're not going to be the leader, even if you're not going to be the teacher, everybody can get involved. And you can even begin the movement in your community. We have a very simple 10-step process to get a LifeWise started in your community. And it starts with growing community interest. It really starts with a petitioning process. And so you could go to our website, lifewise.org. That's LIFEWISE.org, and click Find Your School. You can find any school district in the nation, and you can add your name to the community interest list, basically saying, yes, we would like to see this in our community. Share that out, start gathering names, and then we begin the 10-step process of forming a steering committee, drafting a plan. We'll go to the school, and before you know it, God will raise up the right people in your community to get this thing done.
So encouraging. Joel Penton, LifeWise Academy, thank you so much for joining us. And again, that website, lifewise.org. Is that correct?
That's right, lifewise.org. Thank you for the opportunity.
Listen, our pleasure. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and may God continue to bless abundantly. All right, folks, while we're grateful for ministries such as LifeWise that reach Christian students in public schools, the fact remains that there is an enormous need for Christian parents to seek alternatives for their children's education. And I suppose there's never been a greater time than right now. And the solution is clear. Churches need to be proactive in launching schools so that they can help provide quality alternative for Christian families. And thankfully, there are many more churches and communities that are stepping up to do this. And joining me now to discuss this is David Goodwin. He's the director of the Association of Classical Christian Schools, ACCS. David, welcome to Washington Watch.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, it is great for us to have you, and we appreciate what you're doing on this special edition of Back to School Issues. There are so many different issues. So let's just jump off the bat here on your particular role. Why is it so important for churches to start or to open Christian schools?
Well, you know, for over 1,000 years, it was the churches that did the educating. They were the ones responsible, and they sustained the Christian worldview through that process. It's only been the last 100 or 150 years that that's moved away from the schools, away from the churches and into the public school system. So what we're calling for is a form of Christian education called classical Christian education, which seeks to restore that form that was existent before the American public school system developed. And we would love to have churches across the country join with us in building those schools. We have about 500 right now in our membership. We've been operating for the last 30 years. And the demand is really, frankly, going so high at this point that we're dependent on church buildings and church resources to get these schools started.
It's amazing. We have 4 grandchildren, all of whom are in classical education, 2 in Christian classical. And listen, I can testify personally of just how powerful and effective what you're doing is and what it has done for our 2 grandchildren who are specifically lined up there with you. Can you tell us a little bit more, people who are not familiar, about your organization and how you really support Christian schools?
Sure. Well, our organization is one of course, many Christian school organizations. The unique thing about ours is, as you mentioned, I'm glad to hear your grandchildren are in classical Christian education. It's a unique form. It really is. It's one of those words that you don't really know what to do with it. There's classic Coke and classic cars, so you think classical education must just be old. But in reality, it was a form of education developed in the church after the fall of the Roman Empire, and it sustained the church really as the primary form of education up until about 1820, 1830. So it had a long run, and it developed most of our founding fathers. It developed the doctrines of the church, and so it's a very unique form. It studies what we sometimes call the great books. So it looks to the wisdom of the past. It studies a lot of theology. The students in our schools often learn Latin and Greek as avenues to the past to be able to read original manuscripts. But it's really for everybody. It's not something that is just an egghead kind of thing. We've got people pretty much from every walk of life. We've got inner city schools. We have schools across the suburbs and in metro areas, and they all have in common a love for the Lordship of Jesus Christ and an establishment of the Christian worldview, which is really, when you think about it, what school does is it builds this thing called, in the Bible, it's called paideia. That's the Greek word. We now kind of call it worldview. It's a little different than what we think of, but that's the primary function of classical Christian schools, and that's what our organization focuses upon.
So what would you, advice-wise, what kind of advice would you have for a church or community that's considering launching a school like this? I know there's many schools that just feel like we can't do this, we can't pull this off. How can maybe churches pull together, communities work together? What advice would you give some who are listening or watching right now who would love to do this?
Well, before 2020, we were bringing in about 20 to 30 new schools a year. And at present, we have, in the last 2 years, brought in about 200 new schools. So our organization has dedicated resources to try and help schools get off the ground. That's at classicalchristian.org. That's just all one word, classicalchristian.org. And at our website, you can find a variety of resources, and some involve startup practices and startup kits for new schools to get started. So churches can go there if they like. The other thing I like to really emphasize to churches is that this may seem daunting, but really education has been made a little bit overcomplicated by all the bureaucracy and all the systems that have to be there for things like public schools. Really, all it takes is a room, a teacher, and some kids. Now, of course, the teacher has to be, gifted at teaching. It's a spiritual gift, but don't think too small is too small. Most of our schools start with between 3 and 12 students the first year. And you can blend classrooms. You can use what are called pod schools, where you get a single teacher that teaches across multiple ages. There's a whole lot of ways you can do this. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to start out as a great big brick and mortar kind of operation. Now, having said that, many of our schools grow into that, and that's where the success of classical Christian education has, become available to many communities around the country. Also at classicalchristian.org, we have a school finder, much like the former guest mentioned, where you can click the schools button up in the upper right-hand corner, and you can go through and look at all the schools. We've made it really easy to shop, to look. We have, I think it's now up over 200,000 unique visitors a year to that site, just looking for classical Christian schools. So we put a lot of resources in to make it easy for families and churches to be able to find a classical Christian school near them.
That's fantastic. And we've got just right at a minute left. I know you've got a lot of other resources for parents as well as for schools. Again, that website, classicalchristian.org. In the last 45 seconds or so that we have, what is your hope and what is your prayer as you engage in this work and face a brand new school year?
Well, that's a great question. I will say that our parent resource area is called classicaldifference.com. But I will say that my hope and prayer is that parents will, in this cultural moment where things are so challenging, so many just evil things are going on in the public sphere, it's time for us as Christians to come back to the kingdom, to come back to Christ, to dedicate all of the universe, all of the world, to his service and to his glory.
Got about 15 seconds, David.
So that's what I would say is my hope and prayer is that we can restore Christianity to the public sphere.
David Goodwin of the Association of Classical Christian Schools, ACCS, thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thank you.
All right, friends, I want to remind you again to visit TonyPerkins.com for a link to all the resources that we've talked about on today's show. We've covered a lot. You don't want to miss it, so go back and check it out. Thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch. We'll see you next time.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council and is entirely listener-supported. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information on anything you've heard today, or to find out how you can partner with us in our ongoing efforts to promote faith, family, and freedom, visit TonyPerkins.com. Also, to leave a comment about Washington Watch, call our watch line at 1-866-372-7234. That's 1-866-372-7234.
Hi, I'm Joe Sweeney. I founded the Acervo Project in response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking and child exploitation. Classifying this as an epidemic is an understatement. Our investigation teams and cyber analysts are tracking child predators every day. We're making a difference, but we need your help. The average age of a trafficked child is just 14 years old. Will you join the Acervo Project team? Donate $14 a month to protect the next at-risk 14-year-old. Pledge your $14 a month at theacervoproject.org. That's ASSERVO.org.
Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.